Okay, and here we are again. Let's see what I can get across to you. There is, as you're probably all aware, an announcement. Thank you. There's an announcement coming out, we think at 5 o'clock tonight, about the self-employment. Nothing that much new appears to have happened today. I think probably they're trying to sort out the detail. I did pick up some chat questions on the first time we tried to log in. Can I just reiterate what I said yesterday? Yesterday we put up an article on the ICB website, which is, you can find it on the news page. And we've gone through all the questions that have been asked over the last few days, and I've written a summary of the answers, some of which I've taken from some of which I've taken from HMRC, some of which actually has come from other members. So thank you to all members who've contributed towards that. Question here about partnerships. Is provision being made for partnerships? Partnership is simply two or more individuals self-employed people working together. So I think when this comes out, when we know what the rules are going to be and how they're going to sort out what self-employed people are going to be paid, then we'll know what happens to partnerships. But I would imagine that it's going to be based on your personal income that you take from the partnership at a guess. So not too sure what else. Still trying to sort out owner directors. I haven't got any more information than I had yesterday. Somebody did actually put up some notes on the first running of this video. There was an awful lot of information. So I was just looking at some questions. Oh, thanks, Sean. Sean has put some information up there for partnerships new scheme, which I think was going through Parliament yesterday. A lot of questions came out yesterday on things like what's happening with apprentices and minimum wage. Does the 80% take you down below minimum wage? I was watching the debate in Parliament, and the Shadow Chancellor was asking those questions of the government anyway. So at some stage, I think there will be an announcement about what's happening to apprenticeship pay. The Institute for Apprenticeships, IFA, sent out a briefing yesterday to ask people who have got apprentices to keep them on, to try and support them. And there's been a lot of information about extending the length of the apprenticeship time because of the business interruption. Other information that's been flying around today on the forums and in the news is to do with the personal guarantees for the business interruption loans for directors. Barclays apparently is asking people to sign it. Other banks are not, so there's going to be some more information coming out on that, because I would imagine that all the banks will have to do a similar thing. As I was saying, we put an article up yesterday onto the news page of the website, which has got as many answers as we've had so far to questions. We'll put out another article tomorrow and pick up any other things that come out of today's meeting. I've taken a couple of questions already today on the self-employment, where what happens in the first year of self-employment when you haven't actually got any self-assessment information on the website. The answer is I don't know. It's still so much. They're bringing out the overarching announcements, but of course the details of people in the background are still working through that. Questions here. If an employee started on the 25th of February, they're on the Feb payroll. If they're to be furloughed, well, 80%. Will you get the 80% based on what they're paying? Oh, they've just made me the host, so it looks like Gary's not actually joining us yet. But anyway, first year apprentices who are already on low rates, we don't know. They were The Shadow Chancellor was saying that could there be a ruling that apprentices are paid at 100% of their rate, not at the 80%, and also what's going to happen if the 80% rule takes them down below minimum wage. All sorts of questions we've got now. Grant money to be treated as income for tax purposes. Under FRS 105, section, I had it yesterday, section 24 of FRS 1025 covers government grants, and that is going to be applicable, I think, to these grants. Oh, I think we've got Gary, but we can't hear him. Hello, Gary. See you, but can't hear you, Gary.
There we are.
There you are.
I'm sorry to spoil that quiet time.
Oh, it's never quiet when I'm around, Gary, don't worry.
Okay. How's it going?
Fine, I'll hand over to you. We're just chatting about some questions, so I'll hand over to you, Gary.
No. I'm happy for you to take on, Jackie, honestly. I think we haven't yet got the big announcement that we're waiting for. That's going to be made later today by the Chancellor, I gather. So I haven't got the positive news yet, and there is a lot of conjecture at the moment as to what's going to be happening. Some are saying that it will be the 80% rule, exactly as for employed people. Others are saying that parts of the government are asking or were asking for a cash payment to be made as a one-off. But interestingly, last night, if I can just read it, Sir Ed Davey, who's the deputy leader of the Lib Dems, or joint leader, I think they had 4 of them, but after the last election, I gather they didn't have enough to fill all the vacancies. Ooh, sorry, political point. Said he recognised the government's plans to not address all or maybe any of the problems above, but insisted the perfect should not be the enemy of the possible. He said that a clawback feature should be part of any plan so that when the self-employed fill in their tax returns in future, any money they earned above these measures should be repaid. The imperative is to get the money out there and police it retrospectively. Payments would be capped, temporary and repayable where it turns out it wasn't needed. So I'm not sure how they're going to work out, but basically he's saying that we need to get something done. So there is a definite imperative there with the government. They will be doing that. I'll put it close to here. And we understand that statement will come out later today. But meanwhile, for companies that are employing staff, I gather people are trying to work out this question of furloughing now and what can and can't be done. And I think there will be a certain amount of flexibility, the biggest problem being that the government announced a set of measures for which they had no way of coping with them at the moment. So they are working on them at the moment. But listening to most commentators, generally I think they think the government's trying pretty hard in very, very demanding times. But as always, we're getting towards the end of the month now. Payday is normally 28th, what's Saturday. And so people are getting a little bit more fractures. And the big debate is about, obviously, freelancers stroke self-employed. I was trying to see what the difference was between freelance and self-employed, but there doesn't seem to be a lot. But anyway, one way or another, that will be there. So I'm sure, Jackie, you've got a lot of questions there. What I would say is that the conversations that we're having with members at the moment, everybody is being very positive, trying to remain positive. And I think at ICB, we all understand the difficulties that you're going through, but we have been praised, if I can call it that, for the way that we're doing our ICB TV or whatever we're calling it, because we are being positive. And I think the last thing you want is somebody that's going to look really glum or something when we come through and talk to you. So we are trying to be cheerful. It's not over cheerful. As I say, we understand. We've all unfortunately been through similar things to this as far as having income taken away from us in the past. What with, in my case, 3 redundancies in the space of 2 years when the bad times hit in the 60s and early 70s. And, you know, so I do understand that it is a worry when the revenue drops, but I think at this stage we have to hang on for hopefully only till the end of today to know what's going on. Then we can really start to plan. Now, the other thing that we're getting from a lot of businesses that are ringing us saying, can I have a bookkeeper? And we're trying to sort that out and put them through to members now, is, look, it's a mess, but I can't make it a bigger mess by putting my head in the sand. So these are probably the good businesses that are thinking about this at the moment. A lot of people, as always, will put their head in the sand, and it's up to us to now get that sorted. And one thing I think I've noticed is that people who were, how can I put it, convinced to start becoming trusted advisors, a phrase which those of you who have heard me speaking at Summit or at Inspire Talk is a phrase that I hate, because we've always been, as bookkeepers, trusted advisors, but all of a sudden it became trendy to sit at home, make everybody do the work themselves, but just pop in with the odd bit of advice. They're really coming unstuck at the moment because they don't have that personal relationship that we discussed at some length yesterday. So don't forget, whatever you do, talk to your clients. We don't know what's going on. They don't know what's going on. You get the benefit of talking to your fellow members, either at branch meetings or on webinars like this. Some of them are just as isolated, if not more. They need your help, they need your guidance, and they need either your smiling face or at least your happy voice. So I've got some other things to announce later on that we're going to be doing to try and help you spend your time effectively whilst you're in this enforced lockdown. Jackie, how are things going with you? Are you getting more answers now, do you think?
Well, I haven't been able to get very much today. I've had no emails coming out from HMRC today that have been of use at all to this, because whether that's because Parliament closed down last night and HMRC are not issuing any notices today. Certainly I hadn't had anything by 2 o'clock. So there's a lot of comment going on. The forums are going berserk. Everybody's putting stuff up on their websites, but be careful of, well, I'm trying to be very careful of the information that I find to make sure that it does come from an official source, and to remind everybody that the information that we've given you out is the best information we think, given the data that we've got. It changes on a daily basis. And a lot of the questions are coming through that we have dealt with over the last 2 weeks. So with due respect, I don't want to go over too many of them again today. I think I've said a couple of times, we put an article up on the news section of the ICB website, which has covered as much as we know of a lot of the questions that have been there. But very quickly summing up, VAT, yes, you still have to put in your VAT returns. February VAT return doesn't have to be paid. There's a payment deferment at the moment, but please now cancel your direct debits. That's, I think, what we've as seems to come out, that if you're on direct debit, cancel the direct debits. As far as the reimbursement of the 80% wages, you have to apply for that through a new portal, which is due to be released at the end of this month. And the only information I've got is that reimbursements are probably likely to start at some stage in April, which could mean the end of April. So you still have to go through the next month until everything's available. And I think the same thing is going to happen with self-employed. Furloughing letters, we don't have a template, but I have put a link in the article to the ACAS website, and there is a list of things that you should say. We talked yesterday about being able to do that via email, because that's a legal form of communicating with your employees. There's an interesting one here I haven't seen before. Clients starting on the 18th of May, but the business is shut and current staff will be on furlough. Would this starter also take furlough status? No, I don't think you should start them. Am I right, Gary? I think if you've got someone due to start in May, you don't start them, you defer their start date.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't put them on furlough and pay them, because there's nothing you can base that on.
They had to be on the payroll by the 28th of February, wasn't it?
28th or 29th of February in order to furlough them, and apply for the salary.
I mean, I think the thing is that's to try and stop people putting on a load of relatives and everything else onto the payroll, saying that they were due to start and then getting paid for them. So, I mean, if somebody isn't an employee now, I really don't see how anybody can be expected to pay for them. It is a difficulty if it's somebody that you've been trying to get on board and you might lose them, but they've got to understand that times are different at the moment and very difficult, obviously. But that's about it. It's not good for them. Who knows? It might be another one of those special cases that comes up eventually.
Here's an interesting one I haven't actually seen. How do businesses file their VAT if they are closed? Well, presumably in exactly the same way they do now, because the business owners have still got to be responsible for everything, and those VAT returns have got to be done. It is only the payment that has been deferred. So ICB members need to hang in there. If there's only enough work for one employee, can you alternate furlough between two employees? No, I don't think you can. Something I read today says no, you've got to choose and furlough. You can't bring them in and bring them out, because that is actually going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, I think the suggestion is that the two have, one has perhaps goes for a salary reduction, the other goes for furloughing, so that neither is benefiting more than the other. But I think those tricky negotiations are something that you have to look at as an employer, and make sure that it works for all sides. And that is always going to be a difficult one, but I think it's something we've just got to deal with on perhaps that basis. It would be unfair to have one person furloughed if you've only got 50% of the work available now.
The statutory maternity question, I think once they've come back from statutory maternity leave, they can, we assume, then be furloughed as per any other member of staff. But I don't know what the salary would be based on to claim the 80% back. There's an interesting question here. Love these accountants that advise the companies to pay the directors in March, and whether they put their pay up for March if they've been on minimal pay. Well, as we know, the salary is going to be based on the February salary. So if you've been on a low salary up till February, that's what the basis of the 80% is going to be on.
And as I said yesterday, Jackie, we've already had a number of calls, not a great number, a small number of calls from bookkeepers who are being contacted by the accountants that work on their clients' accounts to say, we need to backdate this, that and the other. Do not get involved in that. You can't do it. It's, if they've not been paying themselves enough money, they've got caught out. But they were, there's nothing we can do about it. We should not get involved with anything which, even in the current state, would be regarded as some sort of fraudulent activity.
Okay, there's one quick question about the article we put up. We haven't actually listed the questions, but what I've done is I've gone through and taken all the questions and put answers together, which answers everything we've been asked. So if you go through that, I don't know whether we're having another one. I think we're having another one of these tomorrow, so we can pick up on any last minute bits tomorrow. Can payroll agents apply on behalf of the client? We're not sure yet. I think it depends.
Won't it be claimed in a normal manner? So if you do it now, you will continue to do it, I think. Yeah,
I think it's the who applies for the furlough rebates, because the payroll will go through that's normal. Whether the payroll agents can apply on behalf of the client, I suppose it depends whether they open it up to agents. And until they open it up, I don't think we're going to be. I don't think we're going to be able to answer that one today. I'm self-employed bookkeeper for a company. Will I get 80% of my weekly invoice too? I think it depends on what your clients can afford. I don't know. If you're still working and you're doing work for them, this is more one for Garry than me, about what happens about, will you get 80% of your weekly invoice? No, I think my reaction to that is, if you're invoicing a client, that invoice is there and they pay you. This is all to do with how much you're earning and what you can claim. If you are still doing some work but your income is reduced as a self-employed person, then I think we've got to wait to see what the announcement is from the Chancellor to see whether you can maybe do a part claim.
Yeah, no, I think the thing is, an invoice is an invoice. I mean, your client might talk you into taking a slightly lower fee. I would suggest that perhaps you put in a full invoice and say, I understand times are difficult, you're getting 80% perhaps, therefore I'll take 80% on account, but the remaining 20% rolls forward. I think everything in this it's business. You have to sell your services, you have to tell them that you're hurting too, and get out of it what you can. But don't take a drop in what you're charging people for, unless it's an absolute necessity. And then don't forget that there are minimum wage considerations to be taken in anyway. And although you're not salaried, you certainly didn't want to be taking anything anywhere near the basic, wage now. So that's a straight negotiation with you. If you've got a good relationship with your client, use that relationship and work something out which works for both sides. I think that's it. Rather than them say, well, we can't afford to pay you anymore, come back in 3 months' time, try and do something which enables you to keep them on board. Unfortunately, it means pulling the belt in a little bit perhaps, but it's better to keep them so that as soon as things start to take off, you hit the floor running. But that's the general advice I would be giving, and it's the advice I think coming from a number of sources. If the client is really up against it, and they are supposedly getting some money now, even if they're self-employed, there might be problems. But you will presumably know from their accounts how they are situated, what is happening, and you want to make sure that you use that in any negotiation, really.
Question here about running March payroll with furloughed staff. What should I do? We have been advised that you should set your furloughed staff up as a payment to furloughed staff. So they will get their full gross pay up until the date you furloughed them. And then you will have agreed and a rate with them once they've been furloughed. That has to be done in agreement with them. And then you will pay them that amount from the furlough date.
It's probably your clients may well not have any experience of real HR, as we would call it. Anyway, a lot of small businesses live by the seat of their pants, and they do tend to ignore any legislation that doesn't come in a red letter. And something like this, I think you've got to be aware they might not have proper contracts, they might not have furlough mention, etc., etc. We really need you to work alongside them to get this one sorted out, but they can't just furlough somebody without some form of agreement. And it may be that your client needs you to sit alongside them to talk through with them. If that will help them, do it. Obviously, you need to cover the cost of that. You can't do this out of the goodness of your heart, because you've got calls on your time and your money exactly the same as they have. But again, make yourself indispensable, make yourself a pillar to their business, and that will protect you moving forward.
Question here on the grant: is the grant repayable later? And someone said no, the grant is not repayable, it's a grant. Now there was a question here, Claire, about your employee on the 25th of February. I tried very hard not to answer it because I'm really not certain. It's based on their pay for February. So if they've only had a few days, I am really not certain what's going to happen about that one. The problem is we don't have the detail on this coming out as yet. Question on self-employed: if over the last few years a person was self-employed and employed but is now only self-employed, how will they be assessed? That hopefully will come out today. They'll look at the self-employment section, I would imagine, of your self-assessment return and base an amount on that up to a maximum.
We had 240 odd pages of legislation out last night, and June was spending her evening reading through it. It was very difficult to understand. I don't think it covered in any great detail what we're discussing, and we're waiting to see how that comes out. But I think if somebody is either employed or self-employed normally, in which case they'll get whatever is offered to that particular style of employment that they have. If you do have two incomes, one as employed and one as self-employed, the self-employed, you will get whatever comes out of today's offer. If you're employed, it's down to how much you were taking out, how much you were being paid, and how you were being paid. And as far as I can see, if you are both, my logic would suggest that you will get both.
Question here about working out furloughed wage for employees that works a different number of hours over their employment. I have heard about it's similar to 0 hours contracts, I think, where the information I've seen is that they will possibly announce that it should be an average over the past 12 weeks. But again, 0 hours contracts has not been formulated yet. So we're still waiting for that one.
I mean, this idea that there'll be a cash payment made, I'm not sure whether that's a holding payment whilst the government understands how on earth it is going to work out how much a person is entitled to. I was listening to figures this morning. Well over 1 million self-employed people earn 10,000 or less. So these are people who are doing normal jobs, let's say, and they've got a bit of an online business or something or other, or they sell jewelry that they make themselves or something like that. It's not a true business in every sense of the word. But then you've got other people who are earning a lot more money than that, registered with VAT, hundreds of thousands turnover. So it's a very broad spectrum. I think the big advantage that they have with the PAYE is that all of that has already been taken into account by the organisation. It has been paying people through PAYE, so they've got an immediate record of what it is that's been going on. And I dropped a note in this morning to Michael Gove, only because I had to have his email from earlier things that we've discussed with him. And I know Michael Gove is Marmite to you, but some like him, some don't. But his office has come back to say that he'll do all he can for us. He will be back in touch once he gets he's been sent home already, so he'll be working from home now. I hope to have a conversation with him. I don't think anybody has any doubt that bookkeepers are very necessary people for small businesses. We're not a special case in the way that you are if you're a doctor or a nurse, but for small business who are completely snowblind when it comes to looking at a set of accounts, yes, we are very, very necessary and very, very important. But I think the first priority at the moment is trying to get people ventilators and masks and coats and various other things. And that's, there is a lot going on. But we will continue to push for bookkeepers. And providing we remain professional, we do our job properly, we hang on to our clients, we make sure our clients do the best they possibly can in this time, I think we should come out at the end of this in a much fitter state and even more loved and highly regarded than we are now.
Sarah, thank you, Sarah, for the comments. The Scotland's application portals have been opened. She's very kindly put a link up to the Glasgow. This is for the business interruption loans. There was an announcement in Parliament last night that I think the loan money is going to be made available by the end of this week. And you do need to contact your local council. That was sort of some chat about that yesterday. Someone likes your handkerchief, your pocket handkerchief, Garry.
Oh, right. Okay, great. Thank you for
very
that.
Very bright and cheery.
Yeah, when I thought the sun is out, I might at least, as I say, we're trying to be very positive here. It's not, it's nothing other than trying to put on a happy face, let's put it that way. And my daughter, bless her, says I have a good face for radio, but nonetheless, here I am. And I see we've got one there from Tibber. What about shareholders who are also directors of the company? How do we deal with their PAYE? Well, exactly the same as everybody else is. If you're on the PAYE, the salary has been recorded. That's what it's going to be based on. I'm not quite sure if there's something to that I'm missing. And also here, hello, I charge my client a fixed monthly fee. This is from Jane. They are closed down at the moment, so obviously not generating the same number of transactions, so my work will be less than usual. Do you think it's then fair for me to charge them my usual fee? Yes. To be honest, you're probably going to work a lot harder at the moment in the advice that you give out and the time that it's going to take you to sort through all of this. It might be different work, but again, it's down to your client. You can't just slap in a bill because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether I think it's fair or you think it's fair, it's whether your client does. So be good to your client, talk to your client, and just keep them bubbling along. And, you know, it's the regular contact, I think. It's what they want. And I don't know, the choice then is yours, whether you knock 10% off, or what I would suggest is say to your client, well, look, providing you can see that they can afford to pay you, I'll keep charging you. But obviously when you come out of this, there will probably be a lot more work I've got to do for you. But if we do it now, very much like the virus itself, we're going to level things out so that we don't start hitting you with big fees at the end of the year. You know, there are so many ways of phrasing this. It's whatever you feel comfortable with, and at the end of the day, what your client feels comfortable with. We've all got to become super salespeople at the moment, promoting ourselves.
Another question here about the where do we get the 29th of February date from? I'm just trying to think where it originated from and what the Chancellor stated at first. It is being based on either February's salary or the average of the last 3 months. The 29th is, I think, in there purely because February was a leap year, so there was an extra day.
I'm asking my client to drop things off at my door to complete their VAT return. I am not going to them, says Faye. Good job, Faye. Absolutely excellent. And yeah, I mean, we have to cope as best we can, to be honest. And the more that we can do, get them to photograph it all, put it on their phone and send it to you if necessary. But yeah, we can. We have to cope.
There's a lovely member here. I think it's Ruth's got a furlough template if anybody wants it. Thank you very much. Maybe we can arrange to get that. And also a couple of people asking about the article. Amy, if you're there, could you possibly put the link up to the article that we put up so that people can link to it from here if possible?
I have that there's a template been put out by the FSB, Federation of Small Business, but I've also heard from a number of sources that actually it's something they've made up and they're not sure it's actually got any legal standing. So be very careful where you get this from. And you can't just send your employees a letter saying, hi, you've been furloughed as from 5 o'clock tonight or something or other. There is a little bit more to it than that. And as we get more advice on that, we will put it up on the website. The website's a great resource, and you know, it's being added to almost on an hourly basis.
There's an interesting one here. Apparently, Martin Lewis has said that if somebody has left at the end of February, that their old employer should furlough them. That's an interesting one, because if they've already issued a P45 and they've completed all their employers' national insurance and their pension contributions, are they going to want to take them back on to furlough them? Now, I'm not even going to go down that route. Sorry, I'm not getting involved in that one.
Thank you. Chrissy Applin here. She sent us a picture of her dog, Ziggy. What a lovely dog. Well, it's keep stroking the dog. Apparently that's extremely good for the mental health.
Yeah.
So I hope you're all, by the way, we talk about mental health. There's been a lot of people jumping up and down on the television, you know, all these experts and what have you saying about mental health. I hope you're okay. If any of you have got any concerns, as I said yesterday and Monday, give us a call. We might not be able to sort everything out, but if you need a chat and you want to mull over a few things, please give us a call. And we'll be doing a few things next week, which I'll talk about in a minute, which we hope might help alleviate some of that. And remember, if you are, and I've seen a lot of this today on the news, I've been trying to keep one eye on the news as we've been going around, a lot of people living on sort of top floor flats, living by themselves, not really able to communicate with people or even seeing walk past a window. If any of you are in that sort of situation and you do need somebody to talk to, why don't you try joining one of our online webinars, our online branch meetings. I mean, we've had some really good meetings, some quite high attendances. It's not quite the same as watching them go past your window, but if you can see somebody on a Zoom meeting, it shows you that there is life out there. And just very quickly to mention, last night I took part in the Berkshire meeting, because that was actually Sylvia Borehill's 60th meeting as chair. So she took over a couple of years back, and so she's actually put through 60 meetings. So congratulations on that one. And I know that Sue Lang yesterday had a really good meeting up in the Northeast as well. So please join in with these. You will be invited to them. So in these times, please don't just unsubscribe from anything and everything, because our emails are in there. Some of them are about the legislation, are very important to you. And as the months go on, as it may be, I think also these other branch meetings and other things that I'll be talking about later that we're doing, you might just find that something like that is helpful to you. And we need to keep communicating. Jackie.
Okay. Question here: if someone has 2 jobs and they're furloughed, can they claim for each one? Well, it's the employer that is claiming. So if your employer is agreeing to pay you while you're on furlough for either one or the other jobs, the fact that you've got 2 jobs means that your income is split between 2 slightly lower salaries, probably. So I would think, yes, it's the employer that's applying, and HMRC are aware that they have 2 employers because that will come through on the RTI. So they should be aware of that. But I just have this feeling that there is so much work going into this that the first month of actually running this and putting this on, we've just got to wait and see how it goes.
Yeah, I think the government know that it's going to be a bit messy, but what they are trying to do is make sure everybody has got at least something coming in, and that is going to be the big difficulty. And also we've had a lot of people saying, well, I've been self-employed for years, but never actually filled in a tax return. Will you take my estimate of what I've earned? Well, I think that's called avoiding paying tax in my mind, so I'm not sure that they need to put their head above the parapet on that one. And I've got one here, Jackie, sorry to see this. I have another client in the construction industry. This is from Kirsty. The employers are isolating because they feel that the site they're working on is high risk. It's a hospital. At this stage, the company has work for them, so not furloughed. I think under those circumstances, the company would have to lay them off because although you say they've got work for them, they might have a contract, but I don't think they can give them work. There might be more to that than I'm reading into. I don't know about what you think, Jackie.
There was some discussion about that all construction sites except those to do with building hospitals should be closed down. Even said that in Scotland as well. So I don't know if you're choosing not to work, but then again, every employee should feel safe at their place of work. So.
And it might be that it's a non-crucial contract for the hospital. It might, I don't know, it might be laying a car park or something, but I have no idea. We'd need a bit more information on that. Perhaps, Kirsty, if you send us an email through to customer services and we'll get that through to Jackie, something like that, and we can, or somebody else might be able to answer that.
Again, where can we find the newsletter? If you go onto the ICB website under resources and news, it's in the list of articles there, and I think it's called COVID-19 question and answers.
It is. It's not a newsletter. It's actually an article.
It's an article, yes. Sorry, it's an article on our news, our list of news articles.
It's a hub. We're calling it the hub.
Okay.
Yeah. If you search under newsletter, you'll get the old newsletters. You won't be directed to that. So, COVID-19 is the thing. There's a whole page, and it's got a nice big red heading at the top. So yeah, it's got a lot of information on there. Now, start at the end of the information because some of the early stuff, which is being archived at the moment, over the last couple of days, has been completely made defunct. So it's not that we're changing our mind. It's just that we are taking new information as it comes forward.
Again, another question from Trudy about the February dates. I can't remember where I got that from. I know it was on the ICAW's website, but I don't think it's actually stated that on the HMRC website. But I think the reason
was stated originally by the Chancellor.
Yeah,
he made that
because
statement.
what they said is it would kick in from the 1st of March and not before. So therefore, I think there is an assumption that you have to have been on the payroll for February in order to qualify to be furloughed backdated to the 1st of March.
Yes, I think that is correct. I'm sure. I mean, I remember listening to him, and that is exactly what he said. Whether or not that's filtered down to Whitehall and whatever application form there is for it remains to be seen. But
the amount of, as one here question from Karen, the contract says 40 hours a week, but gets regular overtime. I don't think overtime is included. I think it's on their basic contracted wage.
I'm not sure about that, actually. We need to wait and see the fine print on that, because nowadays, as you put in your article a little while ago, holiday pay is calculated on an average of overtime as well, isn't it? So it might well be that that can be taken into account. I think we need to wait.
As we said, we're really sorry, but things are moving so fast that as people read the fine detail and interpret, it's how they interpret the information.
But I'm really pleased that the hour at 3 is turning out to be popular. Thank you all those for coming on. I know you've got lots of things going on, and some of you have got animals and family sort of crawling around as you listen. We had just over 320 people booked in for yesterday. I think slightly more than that booked in for today on the Zoom. On top of that, then we had a 400-500 figure from people on the Facebook page, and also last night over 1,500 people actually looked for this and downloaded it afterwards. So, you know, all in all, I know some of you might be gluts for punishment. You're going through it twice, but it looks at the moment as if between 2,500 and 3,000 people each day are taking notice of what it is we're saying. So thank you very much for that. That is brilliant. But can I mention, while I'm talking about Facebook, Amy has asked me to mention this. There are 2 main Facebook groups. Every branch has its own Facebook group, as most of you will know. But if you go onto Facebook and search and look for either ICB Members Group or ICB Students Group, they are now there and for you, so that you can all share information and talk to each other. Just to say that again, it's on Facebook. You go onto the bar at the top and search ICB Members Group, ICB Students Group. Okay, Jackie, how are you doing on that?
Yeah, Sarah's put up a comment, thank you, Sarah, about this contract of employment. If they don't include the appropriate clauses, as we understand it, this needs to be done in discussion anyway with them and in agreement with them. And if you cannot, I think what we've heard is if you cannot agree an amount of money on furlough for them, then you have to, I think it's lay them off, and then the £29 a day kicks in for, I think it's a week. I can't remember. I'm not that up on employment law myself these days.
A very strange question there. Why do I have an apprenticeship member login? I have absolutely no idea, Faye. I will look into that. Could you possibly send us an email, because I've just checked and we've got rather a lot of Fays, just so that we know who you are.
If a client cannot pay the weekly wages, do I still process the payroll or put them on hold? I think the whole idea of this linked in together is, if you cannot pay them, rather than lay them off, you furlough them, pay them the 80% and claim it back through the HMRC furlough hub, and the business interruption loan is there to make up the shortfall. Sorry, the grant is there to make up the shortfall. But there is going to be a time lag and a delay in getting all this through. So this is unprecedented, and I'm just so glad I don't work for HMRC at the moment.
Yeah, actually, just talking about Faye, we've got over 75 Fays. I can't quite count because it's in tiny print on my phone, but yeah, so we've got a lot of Fays. If you can let us know who you are, that will be great, and we can sort that one out. Faye, I've got you. Yes, you come back. Hello, Faye. I know who you are now. That's great. I had a feeling it might be you, but that's great. I will work that out for you.
will directors receive the offer based on their salary and dividends recorded on their self-assessment? No, we think it's only going to be a salary.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Number of people have asked this. Our information at the moment is, if unfortunately you're only paying yourself £12,000, you're only going to get 80% of that, or whatever small figure it was. The dividend is not classed as a salary. That's a sort of a class that as some form of bonus, I think, under this, and that doesn't get included.
I think we will find that in the future this may very well change how owner-manager directors deal with their own income. Also, something I said on Monday, these companies who are sole director companies do need to be looking at how they run their businesses anyway as far as their income, because they could very well, if they're personal service companies, fall into the off-payroll working rule, and they are trying to close that loop so that you pay, if you're earning a lot of income from individual companies who would otherwise have to employ you, you fall under the IR35 rule, and you may have to pay tax and NI on that anyway. And if you haven't done so, that's where we think it's going to change things in the future.
That's for people earning quite a lot of money, though, isn't it? And at the moment, it's what would be regarded as a medium-sized company. So, yeah, it is a lot. It hasn't come down this far, and that's been moved back anyway, hasn't it? But it is. We're lobbying on at the moment, because I think the original plan was to have everybody, either all freelancers and all self-employed people, employed by their clients. Well, those of you who've got 40 or 50 clients each, having 40 or 50 employers is a bit of a nonsense, really. But anyway, so we are working on that. I don't think we've got much of a problem in stopping it happening, but we do want to have a go at that. And if any of you have come across these things called umbrella companies, where actually you get employed by that umbrella company and they pay your national insurance and various other things, basically you are an employee. They are not sanctioned at the moment by HMRC, and we are certainly saying don't be frightened into thinking, oh, well, this is coming soon, I'd better jump and join them, because they'll take 5% of your salary to begin with anyway, but they have no legal status at the moment.
Amy's put the link up to the article. If you want to scroll back through the chat, she popped it up at 3:33, so thanks, Amy. That will take you through to what we've done so far. So I'm about 20 minutes behind on the chat, looking at the questions at the moment.
Okay, well, we've got a couple of minutes then while you're working through those, Jackie. Can I just mention that we are getting a lot of people taking this opportunity to do some more study. I mentioned that our exams are going to be available throughout. The number of people buying textbooks has increased as well. And we will now very shortly have the level 4 textbooks available. They can be purchased now, but they won't actually be distributed until the 7th of April. And that's because of restrictions, obviously, by the distribution company. But that's our new level 4 syllabus. The textbook set is there, and that's where you would normally find it under My ICB, under products for sale. And those of you who want to use this as a time to become an even better ICB bookkeeper, or at least spread your talents wider, then that is now available.
Couple of interesting ones. I have a client 7 miles away. The premises are closed. I use their desktop software at premises. VAT returns due 7th of May. Do I ask the premises to be open for me, or do we not submit VAT? Our thoughts are that you need to submit the VAT. The rules on travelling to work are still, if you are working and you cannot work from home, as I understand it, and Gary, I'll be corrected here, you could go and travel to that place of work, but you've got to keep the social distancing.
Yeah, as I understand it at the moment, if you are doing a job that can't be done from home, there are still people working. I wouldn't suggest you go, and if anybody else is there, other than possibly somebody to open the door for you and then stand well back and keep away from you. But, you know, now is the time to convert people to the cloud. And Sage did a seminar, webinar this morning, and they were trying to explain how to do this. So if you missed that, perhaps if you go onto their website and see what they've got, I think, yeah, some companies will still want everything held at their office, but in times like this, either you do it this way, or well, it may just be that you can't fill it in and they have to take whatever penalties are coming. But it's a bit difficult, I think, that one. Your health at the end of the day, folks, is what's most important. You have to be so careful. With a 21-year-old perfectly fit young girl dying from this now, and I said to you yesterday about a gentleman that was, 6 foot something and fit and healthy, cycling 30 odd miles every week. If it can get people like that, then we really do have to worry about this. We do have to be careful. I know some of you I've spoken to, you are keeping well away from everybody. Richard, he'll know who he is, I won't mention his surname, but Richard was supposed to be going back into hospital for his final course of chemo, and he's been told that he can't go in because hospital is more of a risk to him than ever. So he's got his fingers crossed that actually everything is going to be okay, and it saved him the opportunity or the need to have that final chemo. And I think we just have to be careful. I unfortunately got pneumonia last year, and so my doctor said, well, my lungs are not that good, so I've got to keep out of the way. And, who knows? I hadn't even thought about it, but it came as a bit of a solemn moment when he mentioned this to me. Apparently, he said, I've got the lungs of a 70-year-old. I just hope the 70-year-old doesn't want them back anytime soon. But anyway, Jackie, how are we doing?
Okay, hairdressers that work on commission, what happens to them? I think it depends on their employment status. If they are employed and work on commission, it's an interesting one. I think their commission is probably would still count, but it might have to be an averaging. So I'm not too sure about that one.
I think it's what records you've got. If it's formed part of what you did in the past, you've got more chance of getting some sort of cover for it. But and it depends whether the commission is, well, whether it's almost like an hourly rate, with a retainer, that sort of thing. It depends on the wording. It depends on lots of things.
Yeah.
We did get an inquiry yesterday from a hairdresser who says, I get at least £40 a day in tips. Can I claim for that? So I said, well, have you put that onto your salary? She said, well, no. Well, no, you can't. In fact, you should be claiming the £40 a day as tips so that you pay tax on it. So she hasn't been paying tax on it. If anything, she's likely to get into trouble more than get any subsidy.
How is the 80% calculated if there are losses for the previous years? I assume that's for self-assessment, and we're waiting to see. We need to wait to see what's happening when the announcement comes out later on this afternoon.
The general guidance we get from government is it will not be any subsidy or any grant is not going to be there to prop up companies that were dying anyway. They're not just going to enable you to have at least some money coming in for the next 3 months until you fall through the floor anyway. And I think if you as a self-employed person have been making losses on a regular basis, I'm not sure, I don't know how you would be able to claim that you now wanted to be paid. I don't know. It depends, I think, on what it is you're doing, whether you've got costs and you're just paying out, whatever it is, £1 and sixpence instead of 19 and 6 or whatever it was Dickens said. But so I think it's a question of we've got to be sensible. We've got to understand this. The more information you've got, the better. And if it's about you personally, you're a bookkeeper, I'm sure you can look at it and make a realistic assessment.
Quick comment about the articles that are dated. Can we make sure that it's easy to follow through the long articles about the most up-to-date information? Yes, I'll discuss that with Amy. We're hoping to get something out tomorrow, so we'll make sure that the latest information is there for you. There's a link there to the British Business Bank on the business interruption loan scheme somebody's put up. I think I've
just heard that Chancellor Rushy will be making a statement at 4:45.
Okay.
So I'm sure you'll all be very keen to watch that. I mean, I feel for the guy, really. I mean, had anybody ever heard of him before this? And then all of a sudden, he's, you know, within a week of getting the job, he's being expected to save the country, as it were. But anyway, let's hope he makes good decisions and he helps us all. Anyway, 4:45. So you can watch that on BBC News or on the television or on your app or wherever.
One again, just confirmation value of the furloughs based on gross pay, gross, not net. There's an interesting one about the directors come up from Julia. Thanks, Julia. The accountant who spoke at the Berkshire branch meeting last night said that directors of 1 or 2 director companies are not employees because they don't have contracts of employment, so they cannot furlough themselves. Interesting.
1 or 2 director companies are not employees because they don't have contracts with employees. I'm not sure about that because actually you're treated as separate to the company by HMRC for a lot of reasons. But anyway, we'll see. And the contract, yeah, Junior's just reminded me, the contract doesn't have to be written. It can be assumed if you've been operating as if you were under contract. It might not stand up in a tribunal, but I don't think this is the case for a tribunal. And just to say there, thank you, Faye. Faye has just come on to say that Amy has responded to the inquiry, so hopefully we've sorted out and she's no longer an apprentice, sorry. Less than 30,000 per year, can I still have?
Let's see where we are. Capital allowances we don't know about yet because that is, for a partnership, would be a self-assessment and calculation of tax. I would think that the announcement would cover trading income. So capital allowances come after trading. So the fact that you've invested heavily in assets, I think you're looking at the trading income.
Got one here from Emma. You've probably seen this, Jackie. I'm a self-employed bookkeeper with earnings less than 30,000 per year. Am I still eligible to apply for the loan? Was there a minimum limit?
Sorry, can you repeat that, Gary?
I'm a self-employed bookkeeper with earnings less than 30,000 per year. It says, can I still be eligible to apply for the loan?
The loan is, if it's the business interruption loan, it's to do with businesses that pay rates and have rateable value premises. So if you're working from home and you don't pay business rates, you can't apply for the business interruption loan.
Yeah, let's hope the Chancellor's got something good to tell you when he comes through. Actually, we don't know, obviously, what our members are earning, but we get a gut feeling. And some of you have got some bringing in some quite high salaries, which is really, really good. Let's hope he's got something really good to tell you.
Pam's written, is the 80% payment backdated to the 1st of March, regardless of the date they were furloughed? I think we talked about this, and if they were working, you have to pay them what they earned for working from you. So the 80% kicks in from the day they were furloughed. I think you cannot then go back and say, sorry, we can't afford to pay you the work that you've done for us. I think it's for this month, it's probably going to be a split payment.
Yeah, you have to pay them anyway, don't you? Then the company claims back the 80%. So
apparently, Debbie's come back and said Rishi Sunak is an MP in our neighbouring district, so those of us in North Yorkshire have heard of him.
Well, that's why he's so good with money, you see, coming from North Yorkshire. We've all heard about people in Yorkshire. What is it? Short arms and deep pockets, something or other. So anyway, well done. Good job.
If the self-assessment payment is going to be based on the last 3 years, it concerns me whether this will be on gross or net profit. Net profit has expenses deducted. I was reading somewhere that they think they'll have to, well, he could go either way, but gross income is what you're actually earning. The expenses are up for you to decide how much you want to spend on all your overheads. So I think, I have to say, I think I think it might be gross, but possibly at a slightly lower rate to allow for the net income. But we'll know the answer to that this afternoon.
Yeah, okay.
I can't answer the question about claiming universal credit for the first year at the moment, so we might have to come back to you on that one.
I think there are a number of questions going to come out with this, whatever it is that the Chancellor comes up with today, because over 1 million people have already applied for universal credit. So if they're now entitled to, I don't know, 80% of what it was they were getting before, do they have to take it off? Do they keep it and it comes out in the wash at the end of the year? All this sort of stuff, I think, is going to have to be worked out. Can I, whilst on, also mention that a number of you are, you've taken your exams, you've passed, congratulations, you've got the membership, and you're now applying for your first practice license. As a requisite of the practice license, you have to provide us with a DBS from the department that looks after all sorts of criminal checks, etc. And I understand that the waiting list is 100,000 plus, and some of you are having difficulty. We are unable to authorize you to start your practice if you don't have a DBS and a clean DBS at that. Do not be tempted to start work. Talk to Amy Church, who looks after these things. Ring our office and speak to Amy. She will do whatever she can. She'll keep an eye open and make sure that we get your certificate as quickly as we can. It'll be uploaded. And as soon as we've got that, she can give you the clearance to start. But you are not authorized until we tell you that you are. And to practice without that is still illegal. It's against the law, and there doesn't appear to be any sort of leeway on that is available. And we are very much working to the rules of the FCA and OPBAS, which is our professional body. So talk to us, and we're not sure how long this delay will be taking. It could well be that things will get better, but of course, over 500,000 people have applied to become helpers during this crisis. I think the government asked for 250,000. They've had over 500,000. Every single one of those has got to have a DBS before they're going to be allowed to work with people, and therefore I think the queue might be somewhat longer today. But please bear with us, and if you've got concerns, please let us know. We'll try and work something out, whatever we can. But we are going to need that DBS before you can do much.
Okay, there's a question coming in about subcontractors. Subcontractors who only work with one contractor, can they get the 80% if the project stops due to coronavirus? I think it depends on your relationship with working. If you're a subcontractor, does that mean that probably means you're self-employed or your own limited company? Therefore, you will then have to look at how your income is going to be, because you're probably not entitled to 80% of a salary because you're not employed, because you're a subcontractor, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I think they have to decide whether they are employed by the contractor or whether they are self-employed, in which case it is whichever one applies.
Yeah, there's an awful, I say an awful lot, a lovely lot of comments coming in about the position of directors. It seems to be quite a difference of opinion if you read down those about whether you've got contracts of employment or whether you haven't, and whether you're an employee or whether you can be furloughed. So again, I said yesterday, we will try and get some information and come back on this. I'm very appreciative that it's getting very close to the end of March and we still can't answer these questions, but we just don't have the definitive answer to this yet. So a lot of this is still speculation. Enrolling pension schemes, who pays the employer's contribution? Again, we're still waiting for confirmation as to whether the 80% that you can apply to receive covers just the gross wage, or whether it covers employer costs, which includes employers' national insurance and employers' pension contributions.
Yeah, we haven't heard that.
The comment I saw on the ICAW's website yesterday was that their understanding is that the wording in the detail from HMRC says employer costs, which would therefore include NIC and pensions, but that has not come out from HMRC. It's the ICAW's interpretation of that. I'm not even going to answer that last one, Sarah.
I'll mention now a couple of things that are changing for next week, or not changing. We are going to be doing this as a daily program. I know we missed out on Tuesday. Please stop sending me an email saying you couldn't find us on Tuesday. We didn't do anything on Tuesday. I thought you might have had enough of us after the first one, but apparently you enjoyed it. So therefore, we are now going to make this daily. So we'll be here tomorrow, and we will be here all of next week. And until such time as you start dwindling off and telling us we're no longer required. We will be ringing in a few changes next week. We've got various guests coming on that we can talk to, have a chat to, give us some individual bits of information. And we have hopefully got a couple of people from government departments coming in. They're a bit up against it at the moment, but I promised that we will get a couple of people in. And we've got somebody coming in from one of the banks and various other things to try and help you. So we will be doing that. Now, we do have a lot of students coming on at the moment, and therefore it's still very happy for you to listen into this, because you aren't students for that long, and you'll be in business very soon, or at least you'll be out there very soon as a qualified bookkeeper. But what we are doing, I think at the moment it'll be 10 o'clock each day, certainly for next week. Starting on Monday, we're going to do a special program for students. So that's anybody that is currently studying or is thinking of studying. We're going to talk to you about how to study, where to study, what to do, how to get through this time, what else you can do. And also, the converse of that is that any of the members are going to take this time as an opportunity to, perhaps do payroll, self-assessment tax, level 4. We've actually got one member who is doing the whole suite of qualifications again, because she has a bit of spare time and she quite likes doing exams, she says. And so anybody can do that. If you want to come along and listen to the morning slot, we will gladly take you on board, and we'll see how that one goes. In addition to that, we are waiting just for clarification, but we do believe that we have a young lady who will be talking to us about yoga. And we might well see we're going to see how it goes, but we might well put on a morning half-hour yoga slot, because a lot of you have been saying that, you need relaxation, you need some time. And this particular lady has got children of her own, and she said, right, well, let's see what you can do, and perhaps even give us something that you can do to relax your children. There are a lot of people telling us that the kids are getting stir crazy already, and they're only a week in. So the idea of another 8 or 12 of these is somewhat daunting. And if you can think of anything else that you'd like to get out of this, please let us know. But we are also looking at adding in all sorts of additional, what I would call training webinars from various sources, all of which will add to your list of talents and various other things, and it can go down as part of your CPD. But again, you will be given notice about this. But because we're very much working out what you want from us, from those people who are kind enough to send us information, send us requests, please do just send us an email to customer services, and we will try and amalgamate that into our plans moving forward. And I think if this continues to be as successful as it is being at the moment, we may well actually continue, possibly not on a daily basis, but after this is all finished. But certainly, people seem to be enjoying this. I'm having fun. And to be able to reach over 2,000 members a day, it's definitely got to be worth doing. And so there we are. Jackie.
I think what I would like to do, there are so many questions coming in on the chat. I think what I'd like to do is to have a look at these after the meeting and put some form of a response together for you for tomorrow.
Okay.
Because a lot of them are very similar. We need to do an update. So thank you for all your questions and your chat comments. I will work through them all tomorrow.
I've just been told today is our biggest Zoom number to date. We've got 457 of you, which is absolutely brilliant. So we've gone from 3 and a bit to 3 and a bit to 4.5. So yes, wow, that's great. Now, in addition to that, we have the people who have joined us through Facebook, which I don't have the numbers on quite yet. And then, obviously, I said before, people who can't get here for 3 or have got other things on their mind are able to take it down later, draw it down later. And overnight, we have been getting somewhere in the region of about 1,500 people watching it again. So, yeah, well done, all of you. It is actually being streamed in Ukraine, of all places. Though our members in Ukraine are following this at the moment, which is interesting. I haven't heard how they're doing out there at the moment, or within the last couple of days. So it has got a bit of a worldwide audience. And yesterday we had a couple of people from the Philippines. We had some people from Singapore. We've definitely normally got some Australians out there. And so, yeah, we are indeed ICB Global.
And on a very light-hearted comment, it's very interesting to see it's happened each of the 3 days we've done this so far, that after about 4:10, the comments do start to get quite light-hearted from a number of you, and there's a particular thread going through about eye candy on the television at 9 o'clock in the morning, doing PE on YouTube. For those of us that are interested in looking at some eye candy at 9 o'clock in the morning.
There we go. Doing yoga. Oh, okay. Well, that's good. That's fair enough. So, yeah, we have a lady that's thinking of doing ours. I mean, I'm hoping we can persuade her to do it. I'm not sure she's used to a live audience rather than this. But Valeria is the lady in question. If not, we'll try and find somebody else.
Oh, sorry, Richard. I didn't mean to be sexist. I tried very hard not to be sexist. If that was aimed at my comment.
Well, I think I'm going to have a go at it if it comes up. I'm sitting here like a couch potato, so I need to do something about it as well.
I have to say I can certainly recommend it because I do yoga, and it's one of the few things every morning that gets my back going in the morning. So I can definitely.
Well, towards the end of this period, perhaps we can move into Zumba. Is it Zumba? And then there's hot Zumba, and goodness knows what they are. It'll be. At least we can't be seen. I must remember to switch the camera off.
You and I can, Gary.
Yeah. That's all.
Okay. Right. I have got quite a lot of work to do on these questions for tomorrow for you. So, welcome to, I'm not sure the name, is someone from Budapest.
Budapest. Oh, jolly.
We have a viewer from Budapest. Well done.
Yeah, well done. I've just got a thing here. Can I ask how long the DBS checks last? I passed my M8 before Christmas and I'm now studying some level 4 qualifications. It sounds like I should apply now. The DBS lasts for 12 months, generally. We only require 1 DBS when you sign up. At the moment, we don't ask for that to be renewed on an annual basis, which may change, but at the moment, I would, if you can get through and you can apply now, do that. You'll certainly have 12 months. But whatever you do, don't just leave it in your inbox because it disappears. Rather than run out, it just disappears and you have to buy a new one. So as soon as you get it, send it to ICB, even if it's in advance of your application. Send it to us so we know what we're doing and we can hang on to that. Anything else, Jack? You're going to disappear off and do some...
what I'm actually doing is I'm just quickly copying, when my computer decides to behave, all the chat questions into a Word document so I can deal with them rather than wait for them to be downloaded to me. So let's do that.
Okay. So we're going for 3 o'clock again tomorrow. So that's the last one of this week. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you. Excuse me. I did put on Twitter how wonderful our members are. because we know you're having some tough times out there, and we know it's all a little bit up in the air, but you've been absolutely brilliant. And Team ICB, wherever they are scattered over the four corners of the United Kingdom at this moment, and taking your calls and your emails, etc., and just saying how positive you are, how nice you are. And touch wood, so far, not a bad word from anybody. And with the camaraderie of our community is just unbelievable. And we are really, really pleased that we can be here to work with you, to help you, and do anything we can for you. And thank you for being so professional. Thank you for getting on with this and trying to sort everything out. And hopefully, those of you who are self-employed, by the end of this statement, which again is 4:45, things might be a little bit easier. But so good luck, everybody. Oh, sorry.
Can I also just say, Garry, just to reiterate what we said the other day, I am available. If any of you want to call us for some specific individual questions, please do ring the Institute number. I'm around. Not this afternoon, though, because I'm going to go and listen to the Chancellor's statement. But I am here tomorrow, and I'll be here tomorrow afternoon. But if you've got any specific queries that you think probably are better dealt with on a one-to-one basis, or you just want a quick chat, please give me a call.
And don't forget that the legal helpline, the money laundering helpline, they're all there. They're still free. You ring out, those of you who haven't been with us yet so far this week, because we've obviously got another 100 or so today that weren't. Our office number, 0203 405 4000, is still the number to ring. We have a whiz-bang web system, so we've just literally unplugged our phones, taken them home, plugged them into our routers, and we are able to take calls. We can transfer you through, so if you get any one of our team, they can transfer you through to any other member of the team, or to Jackie, or to one of our external advisors, whatever it might be. And we'd love to hear from you. And we're obviously extremely proud to be servicing you, to providing you with your benefits of membership today, particularly, and wherever. But knowing that you are, I've always said this, you're really nice people, and it's really coming through big and bold now during these tough times. So I hope you have an enjoyable rest of the day. You get some good news if you're waiting for it from the Chancellor at 4:45. And I would also just like to thank Team ICB. Working from home, a lot of them thought was going to be easy. They've always wanted to work from home. They can spend more time at home. Hasn't always quite worked out like that, as you will know, some of you. So we've had people on kitchen tables, bedroom tables, everything you could possibly think of. I think we're settling down now. I hope you think that we're looking after you still. I hope nobody's really noticed. Occasional child in the background, or in Jackie's case, seagulls yesterday, although I see they've gone quiet today.
And the blackbirds this afternoon.
The blackbirds, okay. And you can bake them in a pie, apparently. Anyway, but mine knows, yes. Excellent. So,
if you can catch them.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody, and we will see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, everyone. Bye. Keep safe.